The Korean Mafia Boss's baby stopped breathing on the plane until a black single mother did the unthinkable. The silence was worse than any scream, sudden, absolute, and terrifying. Every passenger in the first-class cabin froze when the infant's cries abruptly cut off, replaced by an eerie stillness that made hearts stop. But none dared to move. Not when they saw the man holding the child. Jae-won Kim sat rigidly in his seat, his sharp jaw clenched so tight it could shatter steel, his expensive suit doing nothing to hide the lethal tension radiating from his body. His bodyguards flanked him like statues, hands hovering near concealed weapons, their cold eyes scanning for threats. The baby, pale, blue-lipped, utterly silent, lay limp in his arms. Then Hazel Williams, an off-duty EMT traveling with her 5-year-old daughter Ruby 2 rows back, heard that terrible absence of sound, and her training overrode every survival instinct. She lunged forward, ignoring the guards who moved to intercept her, and snatched the lifeless infant from the most dangerous man on the plane. On the floor of the cramped aisle, 35,000 feet above the ground, she prepared to do the unthinkable, breathe life back into the air of the Kim crime syndicate. "Get back," one guard barked, reaching for her shoulder. "Touch me and this baby dies," Hazel snapped without looking up, her fingers already checking for a pulse on the infant's tiny neck. Nothing. She tilted the baby's head back, opened the airway. "How long has he been like this?" Jae-won's voice came out strangled, barely recognizable. 30 seconds. Maybe more. Too long. Hazel's hands moved with practiced efficiency, positioning the baby on the floor between the seats. She placed 2 fingers on the center of the tiny chest and began compressions, fast, shallow, precise. 1, 2, 3, 4. She bent down, covered the baby's nose and mouth with her own, gave 2 gentle breaths. The small chest rose and fell. "Mommy," Ruby's frightened voice called from behind. "Stay in your seat, baby," Hazel commanded, her tone leaving no room for argument. She continued the rhythm. "Compress, compress, breathe. Compress, compress, breathe." Time stretched and contracted. The cabin lights seemed too bright, the recycled air too thin. A flight attendant appeared, trembling. "Should I call for a doctor?" "Is there?" "I am the doctor right now," Hazel said through gritted teeth. "Get me the emergency medical kit. Now." 30 compressions. 2 breaths. She could feel the eyes of every passenger burning into her back, feel the weight of the bodyguards looming over her, feel the crushing pressure of this child's life balanced on the edge of her fingertips. Then a sputter. A cough. The baby's chest heaved on its own, and a thin, beautiful wail filled the cabin. Hazel didn't stop. She rolled the infant onto his side in the recovery position, monitoring his breathing, checking his color as pink slowly crept back into his lips. Only when she was certain he was stable did she allow herself to look up. Jae-won Kim was on his knees beside her, and the expression on his face was something she'd never forget. Raw, desperate gratitude mixed with a vulnerability that seemed utterly foreign to the hard lines of his features. For a moment, he looked almost human. "He's breathing," Hazel said, her own voice shaking now with adrenaline crash. "But he needs a hospital. Now." Jae-won nodded once, sharp and decisive. The mask slammed back into place. He pulled out his phone, spoke rapid Korean into it, then switched to English. "We're making an emergency landing in Las Vegas. 15 minutes. "Good." Hazel kept her hand on the baby's chest, feeling the reassuring rise and fall. "He needs to be monitored. This could be a seizure, cardiac event, choking. I can't tell without proper equipment." The flight attendant returned with the medical kit. Hazel grabbed the infant oxygen mask, placed it gently over the baby's face. His cries had softened to whimpers now, his eyes fluttering open and closed. "Thank you." Jae-won's voice was quiet, controlled, but something dangerous lurked beneath it. "You saved my son's life. I did my job." Hazel finally sat back on her heels, suddenly aware of how close she was to this man, how the guards were still watching her every move. "I'm an EMT. This is what I do." "Your name?" It wasn't a question. Hazel met his eyes, dark, calculating, and far too intense. Hazel Williams. Miss Williams. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and took his son from her arms with surprising gentleness. The baby, still connected to the oxygen, settled against his chest. I am Jae-won Kim, and you have done more than your job today. You have created a debt. Something in the way he said debt made Hazel's stomach tighten. She'd grown up in Detroit, knew the streets, knew when someone was speaking a different language beneath English words. Debt, in his world, didn't mean a thank you card and flowers. No debt, she said firmly, getting to her feet. Just get your son to a hospital. Mommy, is the baby okay? Ruby had unbuckled herself and was clutching Hazel's leg, her wide brown eyes swimming with tears. Hazel scooped her daughter up, held her tight. The baby's okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay. But as the plane began its descent toward Las Vegas, and as Jae-won Kim watched her with those calculating eyes, Hazel knew with absolute certainty that nothing was okay. She'd just saved the life of someone important, someone dangerous. And men like him didn't forget. They didn't let go. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing the emergency landing. Passengers whispered nervously. The bodyguards moved closer to their boss, forming a protective wall. And Hazel held Ruby tighter, trying to ignore the feeling that she'd just stepped into something far more dangerous than a medical emergency. She'd stepped into Jae-won Kim's world. And there was no walking away from that. The plane hit the tarmac hard, tires screeching against asphalt. Through the window, Hazel saw flashing lights, ambulances, police cars, and several black SUVs that definitely weren't official emergency vehicles. Her grip on Ruby tightened. All passengers remained seated, the captain announced, but Jae-won was already standing, his son cradled against his chest. The bodyguards moved like a well-oiled machine, forming a protective corridor around him. One of them, a man with a scar running down his left cheek, blocked Hazel's path as she tried to return to her seat. You come with us. Excuse me? Hazel's voice dropped to that dangerous register she reserved for drunk patients who got handsy. I'm not going anywhere except back to my seat with my daughter. Miss Williams. Jae-won turned, and even holding an infant, he radiated authority. The paramedics will want your report. You performed the intervention. Your testimony is critical. It sounded reasonable. It sounded logical. But the way Scarface positioned himself between her and the other passengers told Hazel this wasn't a request. Fine, she said, keeping her voice steady for Ruby's sake. We give our statement, then we're back on the next flight to New York. Jae-won's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Of course. He was lying. Hazel knew it the way she knew when a patient was hiding symptoms. But what choice did she have? She scooped Ruby onto her hip and followed the wall of suits down the aisle. The Vegas heat hit like a physical blow when they exited the plane. Real paramedics rushed forward with a gurney, but Jae-won waved them off, speaking rapid Korean to his men. One of them, younger, cleaner cut, translated. Mr. Kim has arranged private medical transport. He thanks the emergency services for their rapid response. Private transport? Hazel stepped forward, her EMT instincts overriding her common sense. That baby needs a hospital. A real one, with pediatric specialists and… We have specialists waiting, Jae-won interrupted smoothly. His son was awake now, fussing quietly against his shoulder. The best money can buy. You have my word. Your word. Hazel laughed without humor. I don't even know who you are. Yes, you do. He met her eyes directly. You're from Detroit. You recognize what I am, even if you don't know the specifics. You know I'm not a man who makes empty promises. He was right, and Hazel hated that he was right. She'd seen enough gang leaders, enough street kings, enough men who commanded empires built on violence and fear. Jae-won Kim had that same aura, just wrapped in expensive Italian wool. Mommy, I'm scared. Ruby buried her face in Hazel's neck. That decided it. Hazel turned toward the terminal. Then we're done here. Good luck with your son, Mr. Kim. She made it 3 steps before the bodyguards closed ranks in front of her. Not threatening, not touching, just there. Immovable. Miss Williams. J1's voice was still calm, still controlled. We need to talk. Privately. Please. The please sounded like it cost him something. Hazel slowly turned around. Airport security was watching from a distance, but making no move to intervene. The black SUVs had pulled up right on the tarmac, breaking at least a dozen regulations. Nobody was stopping them. 5 minutes, she said coldly. And my daughter stays with me. J1 nodded once. He gestured toward the nearest SUV, a massive thing with tinted windows, and what Hazel suspected was armor plating. The younger translator opened the door, revealing a pristine interior that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Hazel climbed in, situating Ruby on the far seat. Stay right there, baby. J1 settled across from them, still holding his son. Up close, in the confined space, Hazel could see the exhaustion etched into his features, the slight tremor in his hands that he was trying to hide. He'd been terrified on that plane. Maybe still was. You saved Young-ho's life, he began without preamble. In my culture, in my world, that creates a bond. An obligation. I don't want your money, Hazel cut him off. I don't want anything except to get my daughter to New York for her grandmother's birthday. It's not about money. J1's jaw tightened. It's about survival. Mine, yours, and your daughter's. Ice slid down Hazel's spine. Is that a threat? No. It's a fact. He shifted Young-ho to his other arm, and the baby reached for his father's tie with tiny fists. I have enemies, Miss Williams. Powerful ones. They saw what happened on that plane. They saw you save my son. They saw me allow a stranger to touch the heir to the Kim syndicate. So what? So now you're a liability. He said it bluntly, without apology. You could be a spy, an assassin, a weakness they can exploit. My rivals won't care that you're an innocent EMT with a daughter. They'll come for you to get to me. Hazel's blood ran cold. That's insane. That's my world. J1 pulled out his phone, swiped through several images, then turned the screen toward her. This is Choi Pei. He controls the east side of LA. He's been trying to take over my territory for 3 years. Yesterday, he put a bounty on anyone close to me. The man in the photo had dead eyes and a smile like broken glass. I'm not close to you, Hazel protested, even as her arms instinctively wrapped tighter around Ruby. I just helped a baby. You touched my son. You saw him vulnerable. In the eyes of my enemies, that makes you close enough. J1 leaned forward, his intensity almost overwhelming. I can protect you. I have a secure compound in Los Angeles. Full medical facilities. You can continue caring for Young-ho. He clearly needs ongoing monitoring, and I can ensure nothing happens to you or Ruby. You want me to come work for you? For the Mafia? Hazel shook her head in disbelief. Absolutely not. I'm offering you a contract. Legal, documented, with full compensation. 6 months as Young-ho's private medical consultant. In return, you and your daughter receive complete protection and accommodation. After 6 months, I arrange new identities if needed, relocation assistance, whatever you require to disappear safely. And if I say no? J1's expression turned regretful. Then I provide you with bodyguards and hope it's enough. But I can't force Pei to ignore you. I can't erase what happened on that plane. The only question is whether you face this threat with my full resources or with 2 guards who might get overwhelmed. Hazel looked at Ruby, who was clutching her stuffed rabbit and watching the planes through the tinted window, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding around her. She thought about her tiny apartment in Brooklyn, the double shifts she pulled to make rent, the constant struggle to give her daughter a better life. She thought about men with dead eyes putting bounties on innocent people. This is insane, she whispered. Yes, J1 agreed. But it's also real. And I give you my word, on Young-ho's life, that I will protect you both with everything I have. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, Young-ho made a small sound, and both adults looked down at the baby who'd started this whole mess. He was alert now, his eyes bright, his color good. Alive because Hazel had refused to be paralyzed by fear. Now fear was all she had left. 6 months, she heard herself say. Legal contract. My daughter's safety is non-negotiable. And if I think for 1 second you're lying to me, we're gone. Agreed. Jae-won extended his hand. Hazel stared at it for a long moment, knowing that the second she shook it, her life would never be the same. Then she thought about Ruby's grandmother in New York, about the birthday party they'd miss, about the normal life she'd been fighting so hard to maintain. That life had died the moment she'd heard a baby stop breathing. She shook his hand. "Welcome to my world, Miss Williams," Jae-won said quietly. "I'm sorry you're here." So was she. The Los Angeles compound was a fortress disguised as a mansion. High walls topped with decorative iron spikes that Hazel suspected weren't just decorative. Security cameras on every corner. Guards stationed at intervals like human chess pieces. The SUV passed through 3 separate checkpoints before pulling into a circular driveway centered around a fountain that probably cost more than Hazel's entire apartment building. Ruby had fallen asleep against her shoulder during the 2-hour drive from Vegas, exhausted from the chaos. Hazel envied her daughter's ability to escape into unconsciousness. Her own nerves were frayed wire-thin, every instinct screaming that she'd made a terrible mistake. "This way." The translator, who'd introduced himself as Min-jun, opened her door. His English was perfect, his manner professional but not cold. "We've prepared quarters for you and your daughter." Quarters. Like she was some kind of medieval servant. Hazel climbed out carefully, keeping Ruby secure. Young-ho had been whisked away the moment they arrived by a woman in medical scrubs, actual medical staff, which was at least reassuring. Jae-won had disappeared with his guards, presumably to handle whatever crisis required his attention now that his son was safe. The mansion's interior was stunning and sterile. Marble floors, minimalist furniture, art that probably belonged in museums. Everything was precisely placed, perfectly clean, utterly devoid of warmth. It felt like walking through a high-end hotel designed by someone who'd never actually lived in a home. Min-jun led her up a curved staircase to the 2nd floor, down a hallway lined with closed doors. He stopped at the last one, producing a keycard. "Your suite." Suite was an understatement. The door opened onto a space larger than Hazel's entire Brooklyn apartment. A main living area with sleek couches and a flat-screen TV, a kitchenette with granite counters, and 2 bedrooms visible through open doorways. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens, and beyond them, the sprawl of Los Angeles glittering in the afternoon sun. "The master bedroom has an ensuite bathroom," Min-jun explained. "The smaller room we've set up for your daughter. There are clothes in the closets, all sizes, we estimated based on security footage from the plane." That should have creeped her out. Instead, Hazel just felt numb. Security footage. "Right. Mr. Kim wants you to be comfortable. If you need anything, use the phone." He pointed to a sleek device on the counter. "Press 0 for the main house, 1 for medical, 2 for security, 3 for kitchen." "And what's for?" "The escape line." Hazel couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. Min-jun's expression flickered with something almost like sympathy. "For is Mr. Kim's private line. He said to call if you or your daughter need anything. Anything at all." He left before Hazel could respond, the door clicking shut with a sound that felt far too final. She carried Ruby to the smaller bedroom. Someone had gone overboard. The room was a child's fantasy, decorated in soft purples and pinks, shelves lined with new toys still in their packaging, a bed shaped like a castle. Ruby would lose her mind when she woke up. Hazel tucked her daughter in, kissed her forehead, then retreated to the living area. She stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, trying to process the last 6 hours. This morning she'd been on a plane to New York. Now she was trapped in a crime lord's mansion, contracted to care for his baby, surrounded by armed guards. The phone buzzed. Hazel stared at it like it might explode, then picked it up. "Miss Williams." Jae-won's voice was crisp, businesslike. "I need you in the medical suite. Young-ho's pediatric cardiologist wants to consult with you about the episode on the plane." Medical suite. Of course he had a medical suite. "Where?" "Min-jun is outside your door. He'll escort you." The translator materialized the moment Hazel opened the door, making her wonder if he'd been standing there the whole time. They descended to the first floor, then down another corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The medical suite was tucked away in the East Wing, a fully equipped facility that would make most small-town hospitals jealous. Examination rooms, a pharmacy behind locked glass, monitoring equipment that looked brand new. Young-ho lay in a specialized crib, wires connecting him to machines that beeped softly. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair looked up when Hazel entered. Her name tag read Dr. Sarah Chun, Pediatric Cardiology. You must be Hazel Williams. Dr. Chun extended her hand. Thank you for saving this little one's life. I've been reviewing what happened, and I need to understand the exact sequence of events. Finally, something that made sense. Medicine. Facts. Protocols. Hazel walked her through every detail. The sudden silence, the baby's color, the CPR, the recovery time. Dr. Chin listened intently, occasionally making notes on her tablet. His oxygen saturation dropped to critical levels, the doctor said, showing Hazel the current readings. He has a congenital heart defect, tetralogy of Fallot. He's scheduled for corrective surgery in 3 months, but episodes like this can happen when he becomes overstressed. Why was he on a plane? Hazel demanded. With a condition like that, altitude changes. I advised against it. Dr. Chen's expression turned grim. Mr. Kim had urgent business in Las Vegas. He insisted Young-ho travel with him. Of course he did. Because men like Jae-won Kim made their own rules, even when it came to their children's health. He needs to be monitored constantly until the surgery, Hazel said, looking down at the sleeping infant. In rest, Young-ho looked peaceful, innocent. Any stress, any crying fits, any feeding difficulties could trigger another episode. That's why Mr. Kim hired you. Hazel turned to find Jae-won standing in the doorway. He'd changed clothes. Gone was the suit, replaced by dark slacks and a simple black shirt that somehow made him look even more dangerous. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. I need someone I can trust, he continued, walking toward the crib. Someone who proved they'll fight for my son's life, even when it puts them at risk. Dr. Chin is brilliant, but she's not here every hour. You will be. I'm not a nanny, Hazel shot back. No, you're a highly trained medical professional who will ensure my son survives until his surgery. You'll be compensated accordingly. Jae-won pulled out a folder from seemingly nowhere and handed it to her. The contract. Read it carefully. My lawyer will be available to answer any questions. Hazel opened the folder with trembling hands. The numbers made her dizzy. 6 months at a rate that would pay off her student loans, her mother's medical bills, and still leave enough for Ruby's college fund. Housing and food included. Full medical coverage for both her and Ruby. A safety clause allowing her to leave with 2 weeks' notice if she felt threatened by anyone other than Jae-won's enemies. She couldn't find words. Fair compensation for the risk, Jae-won said flatly. You're putting your life on hold to protect mine. The least I can do is ensure your future is secure when this is over. Dr. Chin cleared her throat. I'll leave you two to discuss details. Hazel, I'll need you to review Young-ho's full medical history. I'll have Min-jun bring you the files. She left, and suddenly the room felt much smaller with just Hazel and Jae-won standing over the crib. Why me? Hazel asked quietly. You could hire a dozen specialists. Because you didn't hesitate. Jae-won's voice was soft, almost vulnerable. On that plane, you saw danger, you saw my guards, you knew something was wrong. But you didn't hesitate. You saved him anyway. That kind of courage can't be bought. That wasn't courage. That was instinct. Then you have good instincts. He looked at her directly. I need people with good instincts around my son. People who see him as a child first and an heir second. Hazel looked down at Young-ho, at his tiny chest rising and falling, at the delicate life hanging by a thread. She thought about Ruby asleep upstairs in a castle bed. She thought about the men with dead eyes who supposedly wanted to hurt them. 6 months, she said firmly. And then we disappear. New identities, new lives, like you promised. You have my word. Hazel signed the contract right there, using the counter as a desk. Her handwriting was shaky, but her signature was clear. She'd just sold 6 months of her life to the devil. She only hoped the price wouldn't be her soul. 3 weeks into her contract, Hazel had established a routine. Mornings with Young-ho, feeding, monitoring, playing gentle games that wouldn't overstimulate his fragile heart. Afternoons with Ruby in the gardens under watchful guards. Evenings reviewing medical charts while Ruby did homework, pretending this gilded cage was normal. But Ruby was thriving. She had new friends, toys, books. She'd stopped asking when they were going home. That terrified Hazel more than the guns. His heart rate is elevated again, Hazel said, adjusting the monitor on Young-ho's chest. 3rd time this week. Dr. Chen frowned. I'll run more tests. The surgery is still 2 months away. We need to keep him stable. After Dr. Chen left, Hazel carried Young-ho to the window. The compound sprawled below, beautiful and terrible. She'd Googled Jae-won Kim the first night here. Import-export businesses, the sanitized version said. The truth was darker. What kind of life are you going to have? She whispered to the baby. The kind who protects what matters. Hazel spun around. Jae-won stood in the doorway, exhaustion etched into his features. Dark circles, tense shoulders. What's going on? Hazel moved to the rocking chair. More guards have been posted. Minjun looks like he hasn't slept. And you look like hell. A ghost of a smile. Blunt as always. It's one of my better qualities. Jae-won sighed, the sound carrying weight. Choi Pei hit one of my warehouses 2 days ago. Burned it to the ground. 3 men in the hospital. Hazel's blood ran cold. Why? He thinks I'm weak because I brought outsiders into my home. Jae-won moved closer. Because I let you save Young-ho. That's insane. Perception matters in my world. He pulled out his phone, showed her photos. Hazel in the garden with Ruby and Young-ho. Playing. Laughing. One captured her looking up at Jae-won, her expression soft. These were taken 3 days ago, he said grimly. From outside the compound. Pei has people watching us. Oh God. Ruby. Is safe. I've tripled security. He crouched in front of her chair. But this is escalating. Pei isn't just watching anymore. Then let us go. Give us those new identities now. It's too late. Regret filled his voice. You're already marked. If you leave, Pei will hunt you down. So what do? We stay here where I can protect you. And we trust each other. Trust. Hazel laughed bitterly. You run a criminal empire. I'm a single mom from Brooklyn. We exist in this world now. Together. His hand settled gently on Young-ho's back. I swear on my son's life, I will keep you and Ruby safe. Why should I believe you? Because I have everything to lose if I don't. His eyes met hers, and Hazel saw past the cold crime lord to the man underneath. The father paralyzed with fear on that plane. Young-ho needs you. And I need you to keep believing he deserves a chance at life, despite who his father is. The vulnerability cracked something in Hazel's chest. She'd spent 3 weeks watching this man with his son. The gentle way he held Young-ho. The Korean lullabies at 2 a.m. I don't hate you, Hazel admitted quietly. I hate this situation. But I don't hate you. It's more than a job now. Admit it. He was right. Young-ho had become a child she'd fight for. And Jae-won had become something more complicated. We should discuss his medication. The explosion shattered the window. Glass erupted inward like deadly rain. Hazel threw herself over Young-ho, feeling shards slice her back. Jae-won's body covered them both. Alarms screamed. Gunfire erupted below. Stay down. Jae-won pulled a gun and fired twice through the broken window. Young-ho screamed, his monitor going wild. Ruby. Oh God, Ruby. I have to get to Ruby. Minjun is moving the children to the safe room. Trust me. He fired again, shouting orders in Korean. The nursery door burst open. Minjun stood there, bleeding from his shoulder. Sir, they've breached the east wall. We need to move. Jae-won hauled Hazel to her feet. Where's Ruby? Safe room, sir. All children are secure. Thank God. Take them to the tunnels, Jae-won commanded. Get them out. What about you? Hazel grabbed his arm. His smile was sharp and dangerous. I'm going to remind Choi Pei why people fear the Kim syndicate. Then he was gone, disappearing into the smoke, and Hazel was being pulled down a hidden staircase by Min-jun. Young-ho screaming against her chest, Ruby somewhere ahead in the darkness, and the man she'd just started to trust running toward certain death. The tunnels beneath the compound were narrow and dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast everything in sickly red. Hazel's lungs burned as she ran. Young-ho clutched against her chest, his screams echoing off the concrete walls. Min-jun led the way despite the blood soaking through his shirt, his gun drawn, moving with the precision of someone who'd practiced this exact escape. Behind them, the sounds of gunfire grew distant, but no less terrifying. Ruby! Hazel gasped. Where is she? Just ahead, Min-jun panted. Dr. Chen has the children. Keep moving. The tunnel opened into a wider space, an underground garage filled with armored vehicles. Dr. Chen stood beside a black SUV, surrounded by 4 guards and a cluster of terrified children. Ruby broke free the moment she saw Hazel. Mommy! She crashed into Hazel's legs, sobbing. Hazel nearly collapsed with relief. She dropped to her knees, one arm around Ruby, the other still holding Young-ho. I'm here, baby. I'm here. You're okay. I was so scared. There were loud noises, and Mr. Min-jun said we had to run, Anne. I know, sweetheart. But you're safe now. Hazel kissed her daughter's forehead, then looked up at Dr. Chen. Is everyone accounted for? All 8 children, yes. Dr. Chen's hands were shaking. What's happening up there? Choi Pei. Min-jun grimaced, pressing a hand to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. He finally made his move. One of the guards stepped forward. Sir, we need to leave. Now. Mr. Kim's orders were clear. Get them out at any cost. What about Jae-won? Hazel demanded, getting to her feet with Ruby still clinging to her. Young-ho had stopped screaming but was whimpering, his little fists clenched tight. Min-jun's expression was grim. Mr. Kim can handle himself. Our job is to protect you and the children. I'm not leaving him to die. He's not going to die. Min-jun's voice was hard, certain. He's the boss. He's fought off worse than Pei. But if we don't leave now, his sacrifice means nothing. Sacrifice. The word hit Hazel like a punch. Jae-won had stayed behind knowing he might not survive. Had sent them away to save them. Get in the vehicle, Min-jun ordered. All of you. Now. Dr. Chen ushered the staff children into one SUV, while Hazel climbed into another with Ruby and Young-ho. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil. 2 guards took the front seats. Min-jun slid in beside Hazel despite his injury, his gun still drawn. Where are we going? Hazel asked as the vehicle roared to life. Safe house. 2 hours north, in the mountains. Mr. Kim prepared it for exactly this scenario. Of course he did. Jae-won Kim planned for everything. Except maybe for a single mom who'd punched through his carefully controlled world to save his son's life. The garage door opened onto a service road hidden behind the compound. As they pulled out, Hazel caught a glimpse of the main house through the trees. Flames licked from the upper floors. Smoke billowed into the night sky. More gunfire cracked through the air. Ruby buried her face in Hazel's side. Why are the bad men hurting people? Because. Hazel struggled for words. How did you explain gang warfare to a 5-year-old? Because sometimes people fight over things that don't matter. But the good men are protecting us. Is Mr. Kim a good man? Hazel looked down at Young-ho, who'd finally fallen into an exhausted sleep against her chest. She thought about Jae-won's gentle hands on his son. His vulnerability when he'd asked her to trust him. The way he'd thrown himself over her and Young-ho without hesitation when the window exploded. Yes, she said quietly. He is. The drive through the city was tense and silent except for Ruby's occasional sniffles and Young-ho's soft breathing. Min-jun made several calls in rapid Korean, his expression growing darker with each one. Hazel caught fragments, casualty reports, position updates, tactical assessments. The language of war. They hit the freeway heading north, and Minjun finally lowered his phone. 7 of our men are down. 3 confirmed dead. But we pushed Pei's people back. The compound is secure. And Jae-won? Alive. Injured but alive. Minjun's jaw tightened. He took a bullet to the leg. He's refusing medical evacuation until he confirms you're safe. Stubborn man. Hazel wanted to scream at him through the phone. Tell him we're fine. Tell him to get to a hospital. I did, he said, and I quote, I'll go when Hazel and my son are behind steel doors. Minjun almost smiled. He's very concerned about you. Ruby had fallen asleep against Hazel's side. Young-ho was still out cold. In the sudden quiet, reality crashed over Hazel like a wave. She'd just survived a military-style assault. Her daughter had been evacuated through underground tunnels. She was fleeing to a safe house in the mountains with a wounded translator and a baby whose father might die defending them. This was her life now. How did Pei get through your security? She asked, keeping her voice low so she wouldn't wake the children. Minjun's expression darkened. He had inside help. Someone in the compound gave him the security codes, the guard rotations, everything. Who? We don't know yet. But Mr. Kim will find out. The promise in his voice was cold. And when he does, that person will wish Pei had killed them first. Hazel shivered despite the warm interior. This was the world Jae-won lived in. Betrayal and blood. Loyalty tested in fire. She'd known it intellectually, but experiencing it was different. Terrifying. The safe house, she said, changing the subject. Will we be alone there? No. 6 guards rotating shifts. Dr. Chun and the staff children will be at a separate location. You, Ruby, and Young-ho will have the main house. I'll coordinate security from the perimeter. And Jae-won will join you once he's stable and can travel. Minjun glanced at her. He won't stay away long. Not with his son there. Not with you there, his tone suggested. Hazel looked out the window at the city lights fading behind them. Somewhere back there, Jae-won was bleeding, fighting, maybe dying. And she was running away with his child. The child she'd saved. The child who'd somehow become hers to protect. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello, Hazel. Jae-won's voice was rough with pain and exhaustion, but alive. So wonderfully alive. Are you safe? Yes. We're in the car. Ruby and Young-ho are asleep. Minjun says you're hurt. It's nothing. A scratch. Liars go to hell, Mr. Kim. A surprised laugh, quickly cut off with a grunt of pain. Perhaps. But I'll go there knowing you're alive. You need a hospital. The safe house was a fortress disguised as a luxury cabin. Nestled in the mountains 2 hours north of Los Angeles, it had reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, and enough supplies to survive a siege. Hazel had been there for 36 hours, and every minute felt like an eternity. Ruby had adjusted remarkably well, treating the whole experience like an adventure. She'd made friends with the guards, turned the massive living room into her personal art studio, and asked no fewer than 50 questions about their mountain vacation. Young-ho was the problem. The baby's heart rate had been erratic since the attack. Stress-induced, Hazel knew, but without Dr. Chen's equipment or a proper hospital nearby, she was working blind. She'd spent most of the night monitoring him, checking his oxygen levels with the limited supplies Minjun had managed to grab during the evacuation. His stats are dropping again, Hazel said, staring at the portable monitor. It was 4 a.m. Ruby was asleep upstairs. Minjun sat across from her in the kitchen, his wounded shoulder bandaged but still causing him pain. How bad? Not critical yet. But he needs his cardiologist. He needs proper medical equipment. Hazel rubbed her tired eyes. When is Jae-won getting here? He left the hospital 3 hours ago against medical advice. Should arrive by dawn. Minjun checked his phone. He's bringing Dr. Chun and full medical supplies. Thank God. Hazel looked down at Young-ho sleeping fitfully in the portable crib beside her. The baby's face was pale, his breathing slightly labored. She'd done everything she could with what she had, but it wasn't enough. You care about him, Minjun observed. Both of them. Hazel didn't pretend to misunderstand. Young-ho is my patient. Of course I care. I met Mr. Kim. She met his eyes. Minjun had been nothing but professional since they'd arrived, but there was something in his expression now. Concern, maybe. Or warning. I don't know what I feel, Hazel admitted quietly. 3 weeks ago, I was a single mom flying to New York. Now I'm hiding in a safe house with a mafia boss's baby while people try to kill us. I don't have the luxury of feelings. Mr. Kim hasn't been the same since you arrived. Minjun leaned back, wincing at the movement. I've worked for him for 7 years. I've seen him order men killed without blinking. I've watched him negotiate million-dollar deals with the same emotion he shows choosing breakfast. But with you, he paused. With you, he's human again. That's not. He got shot protecting you. He stayed behind to fight while we evacuated. And he checked out of the hospital 12 hours early because he couldn't stand being away from his son. Minjun's gaze was steady. From you, Hazel's heart hammered. He was protecting his heir. He was protecting his family. The words hung in the air like a confession. That's what you've become, Miss Williams. Whether you want it or not. Before Hazel could respond, Minjun's phone buzzed. He answered in rapid Korean, his expression shifting from neutral to alarmed in seconds. He stood abruptly, hand moving to his weapon. What's wrong? Mr. Kim's convoy just went dark. They were 10 minutes out. Now nothing. No GPS, no communication. He was already moving toward the door, barking orders at the guards stationed outside. Fear sliced through Hazel's chest. What does that mean? It means someone knew his route. Someone knew when he'd be most vulnerable. Minjun's voice was ice cold. We have a traitor, and they just delivered Mr. Kim straight to Choi Pei. The world tilted. Hazel grabbed the counter to steady herself. We have to do something. We have to. You stay here with the children. That's non-negotiable. Minjun was checking his weapon, grabbing extra ammunition from a hidden panel in the wall. I'm taking half the guards. The rest stay with you. If Jae-won dies. He won't. But Minjun's jaw was tight with worry. He survived worse. But Miss Williams, if something happens, if anyone approaches this house who isn't me or Mr. Kim, you take the children and run. There's a panic room behind the bookshelf in the master bedroom. Code is Young-ho's birthday. You lock yourselves in and don't come out until you hear my voice. Understand? Hazel nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Minjun paused at the door. He's going to survive this. He has too much to live for now. Then he was gone, taking 4 guards with him, and Hazel was alone with a sleeping 5-year-old upstairs and a sick infant whose father might be dying somewhere on a dark mountain road. She lifted Young-ho from the crib, holding him close. His heartbeat fluttered against her chest, too fast, too irregular. Your daddy's going to be okay, she whispered. He has to be okay. But even as she said it, her mind raced. Someone had betrayed them. Someone inside Jae-won's organization had given Choi Pei the safe house location, the convoy route, everything. And that someone was still out there. An hour passed. Then 2. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that felt obscene against her terror. Ruby woke up asking for breakfast. Hazel fed her with shaking hands, trying to act normal while her mind screamed. The remaining guards were tense, weapons drawn, scanning the treeline constantly. The youngest one, barely 20, kept checking his phone, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. Too nervous. Hazel's EMT instincts kicked in. She'd learned to read people in crisis, to spot the signs of guilt and fear. The way the young guard wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. The sweat on his forehead despite the cool mountain air. The way his hand kept drifting to his pocket. Ruby, go upstairs and get your coloring books, Hazel said calmly. But Mommy. Now, baby. Please. Something in her tone made Ruby obey without argument. The moment her daughter disappeared up the stairs, Hazel turned to the guards. 3 remained, the nervous young one and 2 older veterans. Which one of you is working for pay? The room went dead silent. The 2 veterans' hands moved to their weapons. The young guard's face went white. Miss Williams, what are you? One of the veterans began. Him. Hazel pointed at the young guard. He's been checking his phone every 5 minutes. He's sweating. And he keeps looking at the west entrance like he's expecting someone. The young guard's hand moved fast, toward his gun, toward his phone. Hazel couldn't tell. But the veterans were faster. Within seconds, he was on the ground, disarmed, one veteran's knee on his back. The panic room was pitch black and silent as a tomb. Hazel's heart hammered so loud she was certain the men outside could hear it. Ruby clung to her waist, crying softly. Young-ho lay limp in her arms, his breathing shallow and too fast. Outside, footsteps. Heavy boots on hardwood. Men speaking Korean, their voices calm and methodical. Hazel pressed against the reinforced door, one hand over Ruby's mouth. The panic room was small, 6 by 8 feet, lined with shelves of supplies and weapons she couldn't use. A red emergency light cast everything in hellish shadow. Something slammed against the bookshelf outside. Once. Twice. They'd found the entrance. "Mommy," Ruby whimpered. "Shuh, baby." Quiet as a mouse. The men tried forcing the door. It was reinforced steel, but nothing was impenetrable. Young-ho made a weak sound. His lips were turning blue. The stress was killing him. "Hold on, baby," Hazel whispered. "Your daddy's coming." More discussion outside. Then footsteps retreating. Silence. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then gunfire. Distant, then closer. Automatic weapons. Shouting. An explosion shook the house. Ruby screamed. The gunfire intensified. "Hazel." Jaewon's voice cut through the chaos. "Hazel, if you're alive, answer me." "We're here." In the panic room. Footsteps running. The bookshelf scraped open. Someone pounded on the door. "It's me." "Open the door." Hazel fumbled with the lock. The door swung open, and there he was, covered in blood, limping, his face a mask of fury and fear. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, checking Ruby, checking Young-ho, checking Hazel. "We're okay." But Young-ho, his heart. Jaewon took his son with shaking hands. The baby was barely conscious. "Dr. Chin is outside." Min-jun secured a helicopter. "We're getting him to a hospital. Now." They ran. Through the bedroom, over bodies, downstairs where more bodies lay. The safe house was destroyed, walls riddled with bullets, blood everywhere. Min-jun stood at the entrance, arm in a sling. "Pei's men are retreating. But we need to move." Outside, a helicopter waited. Dr. Chin waved from inside. They ran across the blood-soaked ground and climbed aboard. The moment they were airborne, Dr. Chin took Young-ho and went to work. Oxygen mask for line, monitors beeping frantically. Jaewon sat beside Hazel, his hand finding hers. His palm was sticky with blood. "I thought I lost you," he said quietly. "When the convoy was ambushed, when I heard the safe house was under attack. We're alive. We're all alive. Because of you. You identified the traitor. You got them to the panic room." His grip tightened. "You saved my son. Again. That's my job." "No. It stopped being just a job the moment you refused to walk away on that plane." His voice was raw. "My world almost killed you today. My enemies, my wars, they nearly took everything that matters to me. Jaewon, after Young-ho's surgery, after he's stable, I'm getting you out. New identities, new lives far away from me." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "You'll be free." The words felt like a death sentence. "What about you?" Hazel asked. "I'll end this war. One way or another. But you won't be here to see it. You're just going to disappear from your son's life? I'm going to ensure he has a life. With you. With Ruby." Jaewon's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You'll give him what I never can, a chance to be normal." Ruby stirred. Dr. Chin called out that Young-ho's vitals were stabilizing. The helicopter banked toward Los Angeles. Hazel looked at this man. This criminal, this father, this complicated human who'd turned her life upside down. She thought about the gentle way he held his son. The vulnerability in his voice. The way he'd thrown himself into danger to protect them. "I have a better idea," Hazel said quietly. Jaewon looked at her, confused. "What?" You end the war. Not by crushing pay, but by walking away. You fake your death. You give up the syndicate, the power, all of it. She squeezed his hand. And you come with us. We build that new life together. All of us. Hazel, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. She met his eyes. Your son needs his father. And maybe I need you too. The helicopter touched down on the hospital roof. Medical staff rushed forward. Dr. Chen handed Young Ho to waiting doctors. Jae-won stood, pulling Hazel and Ruby to their feet. He cupped Hazel's face with both hands. If I do this, there's no going back. I'll be dead to my world. We'll be running for the rest of our lives. Then we run together, Hazel said. As a family. He kissed her. Right there on the hospital roof, with Minjun politely looking away and Ruby making a disgusted sound. Jae-won Kim kissed Hazel Williams like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you. No one deserves anyone. We just choose each other. Hazel smiled through her tears. So choose us. Choose a new life. 3 months later, a small family boarded a plane. Not first class, economy, with fake passports and new names. The man held an infant whose successful heart surgery had saved his life. The woman held a little girl who chattered excitedly about their new home in New Zealand. To anyone watching, they were just another family starting over. The Korean Mafia Boss and the black single mom, bound together by one impossible moment 35,000 feet in the air, choosing love over power, life over violence, family over everything. The plane took off, carrying them toward a future they'd build together. Far from the wars and the blood. Toward something better. Toward home. The end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. It's the best way to support my writing and get more stories like this. Your support means everything.